And I'm driving to the gym. I'm going to the pool today. It's like a 20-minute drive. So I thought, you know what? Let's hop on here. Let's talk about what's on my mind. Today I want to talk about sprint triathlon, and we'll talk about CrossFit a little. I think one of the biggest misconceptions with me doing sprint triathlon, and just like the goal of sprint triathlon in general, is people think like, oh, you're doing a sprint, so then you must, after that, be working up to doing an Olympic. And then like, the idea is that the progression in triathlon is just to go further. This is the conception so many people have. And that's not my objective at all. In fact, I started longer, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whenever I did my first triathlon, I started with a half Ironman, 70.3. I ended up doing 3 of those, and at the time that was great. I was living near Boston, west of Boston at Hanscom Air Force Base, and it was A, I didn't have a family at the time. B, it was a beautiful spring and summer up there, and it just made sense for my life. They had wonderful trails that I loved to spend lots of time on. There was a bike trail that basically the head of it was near my house where I was living at the time, and I could take it all the way deep into Boston and back, like a 40-mile round trip. It made sense, and part of it was that endurance mindset. I just wanted to see how far I could go. I never did a full Ironman because I'm always of the mind, like, if you're going to do something, do it right. And that's just a lot of training. I've pretty much always had a full-time job, or been a full-time student. And to dedicate, essentially, like, to do a good Ironman, it's essentially your job. So I don't have that desire. Later, my mindset, where I'm at now with sprint triathlon, is different. I don't have the desire for that kind of body. I train for a challenge that I want to objectively measure improvement in, but I also want the result, the outcome on the change to my body in a certain way, right? So that's where, like, I do like the CrossFit body. I love the CrossFit body. I'm just at a point, and I still do some CrossFit. I'll go more into detail on CrossFit in a minute. But I'm just at a point where, I'm 41 and my joints aren't awesome. I think maybe I could rehab a lot of that. But again, now we're getting into the territory of, like, how much time do I actually have to spend to get my body rehabbed so I can do snatches without pain, so I can do muscle ups without pain, so I can do blah, 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 just whatever. Whereas, the sprint triathlon, like, the movements don't bother me all too much. Swim bothers me a little bit, my shoulder, but I can manage my workload with that, and I can manage it. The body I'm going for, again, it is sort of a CrossFit hybrid body, whatever it is. I want to be strong and I want to have endurance. And the sprint, I find, is a sweet spot. Like, we're talking like a 1-hour race if you're elite, which is still within, like, the time domain of a really long CrossFit workout. And the training, now, not everybody trains this way. Some people just train purely like a triathlete for sprint, meaning they really just swim, bike, and run. Maybe they do some accessory work. But I think you can train to be much more on the strength, explosive end of things and perform really well. And my evidence for this is, like, look at the legs of sprint cyclists, right? Look at the upper bodies of sprinters in swimming. And again, like, yeah, those sprints maybe are a little shorter than the sprint triathlon, but I still think you can apply a lot of that. I think applying dynamic Olympic lifts translates really well to sprint triathlon. Squats translate really well to sprint triathlon. Having a strong upper body. So it is kind of that hybrid mindset where I'm just I like the way my body's going to look and perform in the sprint. And so my goal is not to go further. It's just to see how fast I can actually go. And I don't know why this is confusing to people. Like, why in the world of sprint triathlon or in the world of triathlon, the objective is to always go further, right? Like, we don't put that on track athletes. Like, if you're the world's best miler, we don't say, okay, great, like, you've done so good at the mile, now I guess you're going to do like a 5K, or now you're going to do, and then after that you're going to move up to the half marathon, and after that you're going to move to the marathon. Like, no, like, you're just specializing in a certain distance. It just seems weird to me. Yeah, I would say sprint triathlon kind of it's its own thing. It's its own thing. I was going to say, like, it's like a 5K or whatever in the running world. That's where I'm at with it. And I like the training. I like that it requires me to develop strength, and it requires me to develop endurance, and I can take a little bit more of a narrow approach to the training modalities versus CrossFit, where if I wanted to be really good at CrossFit, there's just so many things that I have to be good at. There was a point in my life where that was really cool to me. I liked learning all the skills. I basically have all of the CrossFit skills. I can't think of a CrossFit skill that I don't have. I just don't have it at an elite level, and I don't have the desire, again, to put in the time. I guess that's the point. Like, with triathlon, just to be like, well, I guess eventually you're going to be an Ironman or bust. It's like, no, that's like the difference between being able to do this as a hobby versus being able to do it as a job. It's the same thing with CrossFit. Like, you can be pretty good in your gym, but if you want to be elite, again, it kind of has to become your job. I'm not trying to make this my job. If anything, like, I'm already training a ridiculous amount compared to the average person. If you consider, like, just the time I spend in the gym, like, so a lot of it's resting between sets, etc. But I mean, we're talking on a big week, 14 hours a week. That's a lot. That's a part-time job. I mean, I guess, I don't know what's considered a part-time job. It's a lot. It's a lot of time to dedicate to a hobby. But with the sprint triathlon, I think you can get elite with that volume of training. And I think, honestly, you're gonna like your body, the result, like the metamorphosis that you undergo to your body. I think you're gonna like that better than being an Ironman. I mean, being an Ironman, you're gonna be really freaking lean, and your grocery bill is gonna be insane. You're gonna eat 5,000-6,000 calories a day. I can lead a pretty normal life and try to get elite at the sprint. You know, right now my goal is to be elite in the age group, and from there we'll see where it goes. Now, I guess right now the biggest difference between me training for the sprint triathlon and me training for CrossFit, just as, like, let's say an everyday CrossFitter, number one would be a little bit more limited in my exercise selection as what's the staple, a lot more limited. And then right now, at least the block I'm in, I'm doing more polarized training or anti-glycolytic, meaning my sprints, my high power is very short in duration, with a long recovery, and my endurance is very low powered, zone 2, zone 1. and it's very polarized. I'm not getting super lactic. I'm not getting that burn. And in CrossFit, if you're showing up to your average CrossFit class, you're like so glycolytic, you're so lactic every single workout. Now, I don't know which is better. I've heard compelling arguments on both sides for which will produce amazing results to your capacity. I think both are required. I think long-term, the polarized training should make up the majority of your year, but you're not going to be peaked majority of your year. And then that lactic training, that CrossFit style, that light yourself on fire is good for peaking. And I think it's good psychologically as well. Like you kind of you have to practice going to that dark place, so that way when you do it in the race, you're used to that feeling. And it did pay off last year at Nationals when I got off the bike last year. And this is something I have to work on this year tactically in training. I got off the bike, my hamstrings were completely seized. I mean, I was literally hobbling off the bike and thinking, holy shit, I messed up. Like, I can barely walk right now in transition. I need to go try and run a fast 5K. How on earth am I going to do this? But I relied on my experience with CrossFit, knowing that like I just need to start moving, and this feeling of my hamstrings literally being completely locked, like non-functioning, will pass. Like it'll loosen up, and it did. And I was able to, within a couple minutes, be into my normal stride and maintaining that 7-minute mile split that was kind of my standard for the year. So, but I don't know if I didn't have that experience with CrossFit to really like get yourself into a hole and then like transition into another movement and know that you're going to kind of like recover while you're moving. Without that experience, I might have just freaked out. Because I almost freaked out anyway, and just thought, oh shit, I can't do this run, right? I just can't do this run. So I'm going to walk or quit or whatever. But I kind of knew better. Also, psychologically, like, there's something great about just lighting yourself on fire every now and then. Even like just like feel it like kind of clears out the lungs. Like, talk about endorphins, and just like you've kind of walk around the rest of the day like, wow, I really did something. And I think those workouts should occur throughout the year. I don't know how often, right? I'm still working on that balance. Once a week, twice a week, once every other week. I'm still working on that balance. But yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. Is, CrossFitters talk about the open like it's like this, well, this is your opportunity to test your fitness and see how you've improved. It's like, dude, if you're doing CrossFit year round, you kind of know. Like, you don't need 3 arbitrary workouts to know if you improved or not. Like, if you need that, like, then you need a deeper. You need to talk to your coach. Like, you guys should have some goals and ways to measure your progress outside of the open, and also just like a better, just general sense of yourself, and like you should be able to just know this kind of on a day-to-day basis. I'm gonna do the open anyway because I just want to be a part of. I do a lot of my workouts at the CrossFit gym. I do some nutrition coaching there. I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of the community. But my desire to just like blow the open out of the water is not there this year, and I have no illusion that it's really going to tell me anything about my training or my current fitness that I don't already know. Like, I already know that I'm coming off of having a newborn in October. Like, my training went to shit for a few months. It's kind of back on track now. That's great, but this is what I would say is the very early stage of my season. My season's going to peak next October at Worlds for age group sprint. So I don't really care how I do in the CrossFit Open, especially since it's not my sport. I just don't think it's going to tell me anything. So I'm just doing it as a participant. And I'm not going to let that affect me. I'm not going to let it affect my training, knock me off my game. The focus still is sprint triathlon. And until I feel like I've done everything I can with that, that's going to be the focus. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of what's been on my mind. And we're almost here at the gym. So I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.